See, I think this is putting it onto my channel, but let me see if it lets me, because it doesn't give me a choice of
Well,
channel.
then it would be going to yours. If it doesn't give you a choice, then it's clearly still going to yours.
All right, hold on. No. Well, it says it says we're in there.
Hold on, I'm looking.
Bear with us, friends. We're getting this together.
No, it's on your channel, Erin. It's not on the Proverbial Masterminds channel.
Okay, I don't know how to get it. Because see, when I look at it, it says that we're in there as the Proverbial Masterminds on that channel.
Oh, well, then maybe we are. I don't know.
Hold, but bear with us, friends. If you're tuning in, listen, this is why we are the Proverbial Masterminds. Because, we aren't the experts at all of this.
No, we're not. We're learning, but that's okay because we'll figure it out. Let's just dive in. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Today is the first day.
Yeah. Happy 2021. It's like, whoo, it's cold outside. I'm sitting beside my heater. It's like freezing rain outside. Are you guys getting freezing rain?
It is raining here.
Yeah.
At my house. Are we on? I don't know. I have to fix it. That's all I can say.
Okay.
I'll fix it.
We'll figure it out for next time. But so I don't know where we are. I don't know if we're on Erin Harrigan or the Proverbial Masterminds. I announced the Proverbial Masterminds, so hopefully people will find us.
Hopefully they will.
But that's okay.
So Happy New Year, friend. So
Happy New Year.
It's been a couple of weeks because last Friday was Christmas Day. So we didn't come live on Christmas Day. And we are now in Proverbs 3.
Yeah.
So we had finished up.
We're like moving right along.
Proverbs 2, like just before Christmas. And then we started in Proverbs 3. And so there's a lot to share the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to ask you to jump in because the reason is because today's title is Forget Not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, well, actually, so it's interesting what, one, I'm like so over Happy New Year, like whatever. Okay. It's a new year, but it's really just another day.
Correct.
It's just another day. And I think that we give too much significance and power to time.
100% agree with you.
You know, time doesn't dictate, it's this year is not a living being.
Right.
It's not going to be better or worse than last year. It's just it's a calendar year. And when we're talking about God's wisdom, by the way, God doesn't operate in time.
No.
In our time.
Not the way we know time.
Right. No. So I think we would do ourselves a solid by not giving so much credence to time.
Yeah.
And timelines and, I can't believe I'm not where I thought I was going to be last year or whatever.
Well, and I also think, so please hear me, friends. I'm not saying that holidays aren't important, but when my mom was alive, she would say to me, don't come see me because it's a holiday. Come see me because it's a Tuesday afternoon and you want to see me. So I think that in addition to this idea of time and timeline, we put so much emphasis on a single day, on a holiday, and what it may or may not look like. Or
it's kind of like a wedding. Like a wedding has about this much to do with a marriage.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Now I say that, but today is my husband's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Erin's hubby. What's his name?
Brian.
Happy birthday, Brian.
Yes. And he is not on social media. He's on none of it. And my daughter and I were talking about this. Like he could care less that it's his birthday. Like he's like, whatever. And I try to remind him that because he is married and has 2 daughters, therefore he lives life with 3 women, that his birthday might not matter to him, but our birthdays matter to us
Yeah.
because everybody wants to be celebrated. But still, with what you're saying, is sort of like, but it's one day.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we went through the first two chapters, and let's like recap real quick. I'd be interested in knowing what your recap is. But for me, I think like a lot of 1 and 2, like 1 set the stage of like why it's important to know wisdom, but then it immediately like dove into like why it's really important to also be aware of what wisdom is not and avoid those people, things, and places and references and ideas and slippery slopes and seductive words and all of that, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that was basically like all of 1 and 2.
totally. Yeah. Like this is wisdom, and here she is crying out in the marketplace. And so here's where to find her, and here's how to live it, and here's how not to live it.
Here's how not to live it. Right. So
Yeah.
then we finally get to chapter 3, which to me is now diving into the more active side of it, like the where we need to be attuned to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the very first verse starts off with, my son, do not forget my law. And people, that is daughter, right? This is not just written to men.
That's correct. Yep.
Just for you. My son, my daughter, do not forget my law, but let your heart keep my commands for length of days and long life. We say, here's to, wealth, health, happiness, right? Okay.
Right.
Guess where that comes from?
Yeah.
From wisdom.
From wisdom.
From wisdom, days, length of days and long life and peace. They will add to you. And so then it goes on to talk about mercy and truth and not forsaking that. So forget not. I think that this ties in really well with a practice that I know you do, I do, a lot of people are doing right now, which is choosing a word.
Mm-hmm.
Choosing a word to live by or
to focus
on, for the year. And I think that's a good practice because it boils down to a moment by moment daily practice. But forget not, like it's really that practice of picking a word is saying, I am going to choose intentionally to focus on this so that I don't forget it, because it's that important to me. And I don't forget it because it's going to guide my life. It's going to guide what I do and what I don't do. Right.
Right.
That process to me parallels the process of seeking God's wisdom. And you could probably dive deeper into, you can use your word as a spiritual word to draw you closer to your relationship with God. It doesn't have to be, but it does have the potential to do that. But to me, the framework is, this is why it's important. If it's important enough for you to pick a word, because that word, what that word represents, what matters to you matters that much to your life and the outcome of your life, that you don't want to forget it, that you're basically binding it around your neck by making it your word, by announcing it to everybody. That's the same with wisdom. And that's the same attitude. If we're not taking that attitude with God's word, with his wisdom, if we're not taking that much intentionality with it as we are with our word for 2021, then we might be misaligned. Well,
yes.
we are misaligned.
Yeah. Well, and the whole premise of one word, which by the way, I'm just going to say, this is the book I use, One Word That Will Change Your Life. Dan Britton, Jimmy Page, John Gordon. But the process of this is not for me to come up with my own word. The process is for me to look inwards and look up and say to the Lord, what is it that I need to let go of to truly do the work or live the life, or navigate life that you have in store for me in 2021? What do I need to let go of? What do I truly need? What truly needs to change? What's holding me back? And I think this whole process of studying Proverbs is, Lord, what is your wisdom? This is the book of wisdom. This is why we wanted to study it, because we both had this craving for his wisdom.
Yeah.
And what I've loved unpacking in this is not just finding his wisdom. And again, we're only, 3 chapters and so many verses in. But it's also telling us where not to find it. And it's telling us how, once we have it, what to do with it and how important it is. And so I think you're right that if we are walking with Christ day in, day out, life, business, etc., that we've got to take his word, which I'm holding this up because I'm on my Bible app right now. We've got to take that as seriously as we take more serious than we take the mantras of the world or the idea of one word. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
totally. And to me, it's really exciting to see. Like God is just, I don't know. He's got like a sense of humor, but also just keeps showing up. Just keeps showing up when you look. The book promises length of days, long life. Here, this to me is the clincher. How many of us want to be esteemed in the eyes of others? Like all of us, right?
All of us.
Okay, well, here's the answer to that. If you have mercy and truth, and you don't forget them, you forget them not, mercy and truth. I want you to think about that. Mercy, like mercy. You make me so angry, but oh, my heart will offer you mercy. I will not speak ill of you because my heart is offering you mercy. Mercy and truth. Mercy and truth. Keep those principles. Write them on your heart. Forget not mercy and truth. And so find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man.
Ooh.
Like, right? And what's funny, what's interesting to me is like, we all say we want that, but yet we seek the things that men tell us to do to get that, as opposed to seeking the things that God tell us to do to get that.
Right. Yeah.
Why am I going to listen to the created when the creator is telling me what to do?
And I think that part of the challenge that we have with that is because to truly listen to the creator, we have to give some things up. Whereas when we listen to man, we listen to the world, we don't really have to sacrifice a whole lot.
Explain.
So when we're listening to the world, when we're listening to our fellow man, etc., nothing is asked of us, right? We don't have to put aside ourselves. We don't have to sacrifice who we are or who we want to be and what we want to achieve, etc.
What is happening here? I'm sorry. You're so cute. It's so cute.
But to follow the Lord's wisdom, to seek that, it requires us surrendering. It requires putting ourselves aside. It requires us moving from self-centered and self-reliance to God-centered and God-reliant. And that's a tall order. That's it.
Yeah.
To not be all about ourselves.
Well, and I think, okay, yes. Yeah. Okay. So I can get on board with you there, because I do think that secular messages that aren't necessarily aligned with God's wisdom, they do require something of you. They require you to change something. They require you, right?
100%. Yeah.
But I think the difference is it's like idea shopping, wisdom shopping.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you have all these different ideas and you go, okay, that one really fits well with me.
Right.
Like God's wisdom, it fits well with all of us, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not something different for you than it is for me.
Right.
It might be spoken to us differently.
Sure.
Manifest differently in our lives, but it's the same. It's constant, it's stable. But there's no shopping. Like you don't just go to the next one when the first one doesn't give you what you think you want.
Or I only want this piece, but I don't want that piece.
Yeah.
No, there is none of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of, this is really exciting to me. When I realized that today's episode was going to land on New Year's Day, like with one of the most famous proverbs that
Yes.
people speak, that people have written on tablets, that people have written on placards, on,
Yes.
pictures, like, what's behind me. That's not it, but, stuff like that. So do you want to read that for us? Proverbs 3, 5, and 6.
Absolutely. Let me go here. Okay, so this is in the NIV. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight, or he will direct your paths.
Yeah. So I think lean not to your own understanding when you're thinking about like what your day is supposed to hold, or what your day is supposed to look like, or your year is supposed to look like. It's like, does this fit with what you have for me?
Mm.
Like he'll tell you, because you won't have the peace that he promises back in
Right.
verse 2,
Yeah.
right? When you have God's truth and God's wisdom, you'll have peace. But if you feel like you're floundering internally, I think that's a really good signal. And I've been there. I think we've all been there. That when we feel unsettled with something, it's because there's a friction between our reasoning, our understanding, and God's. And we sense that. It's almost palpable sometimes. You can feel that
Oh, yeah.
unrest.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about, I mean, like you can physically
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
like viscerally, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so here, this is what struck me, because I'm going to tie these two things together: the word for the year and forget not, and then this kind of famous
Do it.
verse. So it says, don't pay attention to what you think seems right to you, right? Do seek my wisdom. I'll show you what's right. I'll give you a piece about
Yep.
that, right? And in all of your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And when I was looking at that, acknowledge him, I looked up what, the I guess the Greek, no, the Hebrew. I don't know which one is the
Hebrew.
Hebrew.
It would have been Hebrew.
Um and it's plain, it's acknowledge him, but it's acknowledge causatively.
Mm.
So acknowledging that the sun rose today because of God.
Hmm.
It's acknowledging that I have a roof over my head because of God. It's acknowledging that I'm breathing right now because of God's. It's acknowledging not just his existence, but causatively
Yes.
acknowledging him. So that means, like, if we have a decision to make, if we're trying to think of the right thing to do, it's to say, okay, I know you give me the ability to think and reason, but you also told me I can seek your wisdom. So I'm surrendering, I'm acknowledging, and I'm surrendering to that acknowledgement. My word of the year happens to be surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And so this morning when I was reading this and I was doing my devotions, and when I say devotions, that's not a fancy word. I don't even know why I use that word. I was thinking.
It's very much a catch-all, I think.
I was thinking and praying. That's
Yeah.
Okay. So
Right.
that's what I mean. That's what I was
Yeah.
doing. I need to come up with a better word, because I don't think people connect with that. But anyway, so I'm looking at my notes here. But to recognize God causatively as the source of and the reason for everything, right? Like the earth and everything in it is held together right now
Yes.
by
Yes.
God. It could, in an instant, poof, disappear into atoms and molecules.
Right.
But here's the thing that really struck me: to recognize causatively is to recognize, and I'm just going to read to you my notes that I wrote. that because of God, I can make a decision. Because of God, I have food, shelter, and provision. Because of God, I can choose joy. Because of God, I can take every thought captive. Because of God, I have, money or whatever. But then talking about recognizing causatively and combining with my word that I am forgetting not, because God is teaching me about surrender. And I'm like totally terrified. Whatever. We'll see what happens. I don't know what I'm
it is
surrendering
scary
here. But he very clearly spoke to me. If all of this stuff, if you acknowledge causatively that all of this stuff is from me and because of me and for me, then the way to surrender, Sherry, so this isn't necessarily tied in with what your, experience of, but I want to show how I'm applying God's wisdom to my life. Okay.
Right. In the practical.
So then the way that you surrender, when you recognize me in all of your ways, you acknowledge me, you recognize me causatively. The way that you surrender when you believe all of those things and you recognize me causatively is you give me the first fruits of all of those things.
Mm.
So I'm like, I'm going, really, God? Like, this is January 1st. And you just dropped this like bomb on me, right? So surrender 2021 for me, the message that I got, and this might be the only thing I focus on the whole year. I don't know. But very often I think the only thing that we talk about in surrendering our first fruits is like tithe, like money.
Right. But it's so much bigger.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's the first fruits of my time.
Of your day. Yep.
My day.
Yes.
Like when I wake up, like, am I going to like click on the news? Am I going to get some coffee?
Pick up my phone.
Right.
Right.
And I am a Candy Crush queen. I'm like a Candy Crush champion. So I do my thinking and praying every morning, but usually first I have my coffee and my Candy Crush.
And he's saying, mm-mm.
Which is fine. I'm like, that's not a big, huge sacrifice.
Right, like first world problem, right? Yeah.
But it's a habit.
Yes.
It's a habit change. And so that's what's coming for me, with wisdom. And so I'm kind of excited about that. But first fruits of my time, first fruits of my thanks. So like, let's say, like when you sent me a gift card for Amazon because I did the podcast review for you, I said, thank you. I should have first, according to God's wisdom, said, thank you, Lord, for your provision. And then thank you, Aaron.
Yeah. And we don't think about those details, which are so important.
The first fruits of my joy, the first fruits of my provision, the first fruits of my money, the first fruits of everything. But here's the bigger part that struck me, that it's the first fruits. It's the first fruits. It's when I get an idea that I'm so excited about, it's the ripest, it's the freshest, it's the most ready to share, instead of, calling my friend or my significant other or my whatever.
Yeah.
It's going, hey, God, I have this idea. Bring this to me, acknowledge me causatively, and give me the first fruits of everything. So that is the first thing that I have learned in 2021 at, 2:26 p.m. Eastern Standard Time of my word, of how I am choosing to forget not in seeking his wisdom and surrendering to it for me, my word surrender.
That's a word. That is deep there.
That's a lot of words.
I mean, because those are the things I agree with you. Like when we think about giving him our first fruits, we always take it back to the tithe.
Yeah.
This is what we know and what we're taught, but it's so much bigger. It's our time, it's our talent, our treasure. But I love what you just said, because I think that we take for granted that he already knows, right? Well, I already know, God already knows I have that idea.
Yeah.
But he wants us coming to him as giddy as children to be like, oh my gosh, Lord, look at this idea that I have.
Yeah. And he already knows because he put it there.
Right. And then also I think taking that opportunity would be like, and I'm so excited you gave this to me. Thank you. Right. Like those first fruits hand in hand. That's powerful.
Yeah. And so, you think about like habit and stuff like that. Like in the Old Testament, one of the reasons, I mean, the sacrifices, yes, stood for Jesus's ultimate sacrifice, but they also served as reminders to the people to cause it to recognize causatively the sovereignty of the Lord.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That he is the be all end all. There is no other God. It is
Right.
him.
Right.
It is he that gave us the land. It is he that gave us the manna. It is he that,
Right.
Allowed us for our shoes to not wear out in the 40
Yeah.
years through the desert. Like all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So how about for you? What
That
are
is
you
so
learning in your life?
good. So it's interesting because over the past few years, when I do my end of the year review and planning for the new year, I would say probably up until the last 3 years, it's always about like, it's never about what I've learned, and it wasn't about what I had learned and progress I had made and growth that I had. It was always about, now how do I make it bigger, or how do I grow more, or how do I set these big goals, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And every year I do my one word. And I think that, like anything, like your time with the Lord every morning, the more that we do it, the more we strengthen that habit, the better we become at it. Not in the sense of like we can do it better, but in the sense of we go deeper. We allow us
Yeah.
the expansion of that. We stop talking and we start listening more, right? All of those ways that we can strengthen that practice,
Yeah.
if you will, and better surrender our time with him. And so this year, as I walked through it, it has you ask yourself 3 questions. What do I need? What needs to change? And what's in my way? And so I
Okay.
just really sat with it and I thought, what do I need? And I thought, you know what? I don't need anything. I have a house, I have food, I have Jesus. Like, I don't need,
Right.
I literally have no need,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, okay, then what needs to change? And it was fascinating because going back to Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, leaning on my own understanding, I would have filled those blocks very specifically to business or very specifically to a relationship or what have you. But in then submitting my ways, I thought, what is it that I'm doing that's limiting his work? Where am I relying on myself instead of him? Where am I not submitting to him fully?
Yeah.
And therefore, because I'm not submitting to him fully, he cannot fully do in and through me what he already had planned to do. And so 2 things I want to say just about that right there. So to whomever's listening, please hear me. God is limitless. And we put him in a box, right? Secondly,
we use our own understanding
we use our own understanding
to understand God. Yeah.
100%. And the way we think things should go and the way they should work out and all of those things. And secondly, I'm not talking about like, while God does do supernatural things through us, I'm not talking about like, Lord, how am I holding back your supernatural, prosperous, whatever. What I'm talking about is like, what are the everyday things that could be a pebble that starts a ripple that has an incredible impact, but that I'm blocking because I'm leaning on my own understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what came up for me was, I like to be in control. I'm a planner. I like to have everything mapped out. I don't believe that I would describe myself as a helicopter parent. At the same time, I want to do anything that I can to ensure that my kids learn the lessons that they need to do and learn. They're 23 and 21, but I also don't want them to have to be in pain.
Well, yeah.
Right. And that's the dream of any parent, right? I mean, I believe my mom, wherever she is, hopefully she's in heaven. that she feels the same, that she's looking out
So
for me.
can I tell you just a really quick
Yeah.
aside, just a funny.
Do it.
So when I first moved into my new place, so I'm like 10 miles from my parents, right? Which is nice to be closer to them. Well, anyway, my mom was like, I need to get like your next door neighbor's number or whatever in case I ever can't get in touch with you or can't get a hold of you. I'm 46, right?
Right.
So speaking of the power of a mother's like desire to protect.
Right.
And so I just said, no, I said, if anything, if you can't ever reach me, then you need to call 911. Like, right? Well,
Which
oh,
of
yeah.
course is her worst nightmare.
Which is her. So one morning, I never ever do this. I'm crawling out of bed. I've got like my phone. I'm like, groggy. I'm trying to like get downstairs to open the door to let the dogs out. And I guess, let me just tell you in the order that I learned things. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I realize I'm like, I've got all these missed calls and I see a text from my mom. And in the midst of opening a text from my mom, she's like, where are you? Are you okay? I get this, my phone rings and it's like a local number. And I'm like, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, right? 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, this is Sherry. He's like, yes, this is state trooper or whatever.
She literally called 911.
Because when I guess I like they call it butt dialing, right? I guess I like butt dialed her, but I didn't butt dial her. I guess I don't know what happened, but I called her and all she could hear was like muffling because the phone was in my sweatshirt pocket and I was going
Right.
down the
Right.
stairs. And she said, all I heard later on after I talked to her, she's like, all I heard was, and I'm like, and she said, and I just started to cry and I just needed to call 911. So anyway,
So, right. This
power, right.
right. Right.
That's like serious stuff. And yours are 21 and 23.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. So in the midst of all of that, I realized, so I am a bit of a control freak and I am OCD, although not clinically diagnosed.
We can make that happen, by the way.
I know you can, but that I have to allow that space. I have to allow, just like I have to stop leaning on my own understanding. I have to remember that these are God's, like he gave me them to steward, right? Like he gives us any resource and to love and all of that. And then I thought about the financial challenges that my husband and I had been through that we've worked through. And I thought, I keep a very tight rein on us financially because I'm afraid. I'm afraid to go backwards. I'm afraid that those old habits, right? So all of this was coming up for me. And at first, the word that I was feeling was release. Like I need to release my grip on everything and I need to release and whatever. And interestingly, that is my friend Wynn's word. And she's writing a book about it. But as I prayed more, so in the past, I would have been like, done, release. That's
right,
the word.
right. Yeah.
Right. But see, as we grow and we grow through stages of not leaning on our own understanding, and we grow through stages of deepening our daily practice with the Lord, etc. I went deeper. And I just kept saying, is that really it? Is that really it? Is that really it? And the visual that came to me was that I had all of these reins in my hands, like reins over my business and my family and my finances and all of this. And literally the word that I didn't audibly hear, but I heard inside was unleash. And I was like, whoa.
Like drop the leash.
Drop the leash, which also means unleash myself from how it has to look and the order in which it has to happen and how much I need to make, etc. I'm not talking about like the simple math of what you need to make in life, but unleash myself from what are other people going to think? Unleash myself from the perfection of how the technology has to work. Like unleash. And when I unleash, guess what? He can be unleashed. Right. So all of that is where I landed for my word, which then I immediately was like, what was rolling around in my head was like this unleash the beast, which then led me to
unleash the Kraken.
Unleash
Isn't that a thing?
Which then led me to this idea of, I think I talked about this online yesterday, there's a song, a Christian song. I don't know the whole thing, but it's like, my God is the Lion of Judah,
Yeah.
which then made me think of like Aslan from Narnia. And then I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. Like, unleash so that the Lion of my sovereign Lord can do and
Yeah.
take me where he needs to take me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which then played all into where we are today with the Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which is
Mhm.
like, unleash my understanding
Yeah.
and submit it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when we are leaning on our own understanding, not only are we being foolish and not embracing the wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
but we're like embracing pieces of the wisdom, like you said earlier, but we're not really allowing ourselves all of it, because some of it we think we don't want. I only want
Yeah.
this much.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. So yeah, I mean, like that's full circle. For I think if the people watching or listening or
All of the above.
one of them or whoever is going to watch the replay,
They will.
I think that if you have a word and you have a relationship with God and you want that word to draw you deeper into a relationship with God, as opposed to accomplish things for you and increase you, instead of increasing you, if you want that to increase the quality of your relationship with God,
Right.
that you can look at it this way too, is that this is using that word is an opportunity to forget not
Yes.
God's wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's all I got for today.
You know what? I love how we start here and we do. It always comes together. You guys need to know, like behind the scenes, as Sherry and I are kind of communicating throughout the week, one of us generally is like, hey, this is where I feel like we're going. This is where I want to take it today. And
we didn't talk this week.
We didn't.
No.
We didn't. So when we come on here, like some days, like we know this is what we're going to call it. And we're like, yeah, that's good. And other days, like the Holy Spirit, I mean, he's always here, but the Holy Spirit's like, nope, this is what you need to talk about today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work out the channel issues.
Okay, awesome. Work out the channel issue. And I'm going to, so for you guys listening and watching, I'm going to be putting together a commercial.
What?
Which is super fun. I'm really excited about it. It'd be like, maybe like a minute long commercial, just with some little clips from us and maybe some bloopers. Yes, I did the clip where you're like, put one foot in front of I don't even know the song, but or today.
You know what that was? I feel like that was like Meister Burger from that same Christmas show where he's like,
anyway, so yeah, thanks for joining us. And this is how I describe the show when people ask me. I just say it's candid conversations about the book of Proverbs, where we are not theologians, but we do have a desire to mind the master's wisdom.
That's it. So join us next Friday. We'll be back here at 2:00 on the right channel.